It's now 1 day under a month since the fire went through. The fire is not yet out, it's still burning in the hills, back and forth, and they're still trying to contain the northern boundary of it. Desley, Darcy and I are going in for a little look to see what's going on from the point of view of Punu Kurunpa. Long-nosed potteroo, correction, long-nosed bandicoot feeding. This quadrant that's been taken out here was coined the rusty fig quadrant. It's completely burnt out. This is the namesake of the quadrant. It's not dead, it's a rusty fig, it's not dead. It is a remnant from days past. You can see the fire got back into the old wood there. Oh, it's struggling. It's still got life in it. Now this rusty fig, Ficus rubenstinia or something, it was called, it was a tree then, and it was burnt back to a stump, and it's struggled to grow back to what we see here since. It's been set back now again. That's the lyre of a lyrebird, one of the minor feathers. No, it's not a dead bird. No. They drop them. Oh, okay. They're drop feathers. They're drop feathers, are they? Right, so trying to be run away. He's not necessarily dead. He'll be getting ready for the new year. They're not the main lyre, but they're part of the lyre. This is the first post of the wet vine transect, which takes us to the cliff top of the property. And Gophra floribunda. So this is the rough-barked apple. It's been very hot, but that's what this bark's designed to do, to take the heat. Here, this
so the
would
shrub is usually very dense here.
Yes, okay. Yes, you're pushing through it, but this is an example of what was what's known as a stag, a dead stag. You get live stags, a dead stag. Now it was completely dead, so it's caught fire, and that's the roots burnt out, and it's fallen here, and of course it's been a habitat tree, and you can see it's just gone down and combusted away.
Combusted. So burned. But look at that, it's eaten right back
into the roots. Well, this is one of the problems, you see.
Yes, you were telling us about this, the fire lasting there for a long time.
The burn, it can be up in under there, and I tell you, out your way in the country you grew up in, forest red gums are the worst of the lot I've ever found. I've had fires where I've been clearing property out there, and it follows the roots, and of course it gets in under there and runs out of oxygen, so it starts to virtually become a charcoal producer.
Slow charcoal?
Yes, a charcoal burner, and every now and again you'll get especially out there, you'll get a bit of dirt will slump, oxygen will get in it, and the flames will spurt up through it and start again. Now that's what can happen in here. That's why this fire won't be out unless we get, it's a month now, it's just going to keep burning until we get rain. And it could flare up. Yep.
So when you say a crown fire, you mean when the fire has reached the top of the trees?
The crown fire is where you'll get it on those northern aspect ridges and what have you. The volatile oils, the heat is moving in front. You've got a hot day, the heat moves in front, the oils become volatile, and the forest becomes explosive, and the fire will get up into the crown, and it just roars through. Very dangerous. You don't want to be in the way of a crown fire, mate. So we'll follow the spur line up and check this transect out. We'll do the quadrats on another day. Here's an example of the protection. This is a G-bung. It's got a very fine bark normally, and it's burnt, but it acts as an insulator to the vascular bundles in underneath. So the tree, that G-bung is still very much alive in under there. It shreds off here, it's insulated.
It's full of colour in there, it's not been burnt in there. Yeah, it's a beautiful rust.
And if you dig through, you'll come to what's commonly called the sapwood, which is the start of the vascular bundles.
Okay. This is a beautiful purple colour.
Yep, that's the G-bung. Now this was a live stag, and I remember this tree because it had a huge snake orchid growing out of the top of it up there. It was massive. It was a beautiful orchid, but of course it's gone. And it's dead now. Won't even make a habitat tree. Here's an example of the potential of more fire. This is a white stringy bark. It's just burning from the bottom up. And here we are, one day under 1 month after the fire went through. We've only had 2.5 millimetres of rain here, and it was light rain which did nothing. We're sitting on this spur line of transit and looking southeast down the spur line. Coming across, you look over the crest of the stern line to the southwest and around to the west, which is where the firestorm came through. This area here has been particularly hard hit in that it's obviously preheated as it's come over, and it's incinerated everything. Down to the front there is a grey forest gum that has obviously survived. Just through there, the yellow bark past the burnt trunks of the white stringy bark, and we're starting to come up into blue stringy bark country. But here's been very hot. The destruction of the lower and middle story has been decimated, leaving just the upper story standing. This would not have been a place to be as the fire crested here. Anything here would have been incinerated. These are conglomerates, obviously. Yep. They roll from the cliff tops up here. They break off slowly and they tumble down. They can get as far down as Desert Creek. And there's some beautiful examples in the creek as you walk up the creek. But what it's about is, we've been walking up these soils of Bega batholith. So it's volcanic action. It's come in underneath an existent geology, and it's cooled down slowly, and it's created the batholith, Bega batholith soils, If you look down into the valley and that, wherever you see the forest red gums growing, that's the good country. That's the good batholith soils. That's where the farmers go for and cleared. So all that cleared ground in the Bega Valley is actually this. But up here, it's quite poor, obviously, but it because it cools slowly, it cooled with in large crystals, and it erodes very rapidly. That's one of the problems with Bega Valley. It's why the Bega River's full of, it's probably one of the worst, it's definitely the worst in the state, if not the country, for sand in it. But this here, so that's the Bega batholith. This here is conglomerates of what's known as the Merimbula group, and it was an ancient riverbed way back. So what's happened is the batholith has come in underneath and lifted it. It's become the actual ridgeline here, and since then, of course, Desert Creek's eroded out down through the batholith and created the Bega Valley with all the beautiful soils there. This stuff is mostly gone, but you get the outbreaks of the Merimbula group here, like here, and they break off and roll down, so it's upside down. That was an ancient riverbed, and the new rivers are forming down there in the gully. But these are beautiful. Now where we've got the hut down there, this was another reason why that site was selected, because we went through and had a look where all these boulders occurred and where they were likely to occur and get through to the creek. So where we wanted to actually build in further, we couldn't, because the risk of a boulder coming down in 1,000 years was too great. So we came back to a spur line that we knew had never been hit. Now, it's Russian roulette, you might say, but that was our logic at the time. But also the logic was that we knew the fire had jumped that site a couple of times in the past. But yeah, this is the Merimbula group, and I find it fascinating. So they're the old river stones locked up, and then they were of course compressed and formed these conglomerates, and then the batholith came in underneath it, lifted it. We're all part of what was known as the Lachlan Fold Belt here, and but this stuff goes back. It's ancient. It goes back further. But that's how you pick. That's how the early cockies, when they came into the valley, they could pick their soils. If the forest red gums were growing there, and they grow from the creek across the other side, you come into forest red gums, and the soil under them was the soil the cockies went for and developed. And these areas here were considered rubbish, but they're not. See, there's a nice forest grey gum there, Desley.
Yes, yes.
That's a ripper.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's been
Just over the rise where the fires, the heat. That's why you could have, you know, if you're really caught, you get on the lee side of where the fire's coming. You wouldn't want to be there at the best of times, but if you're caught, you get in there and you scrape in, and it's the radiant heat that kills. You're going to get burnt and feel hot, but if you're out of the radiant heat, and that rock will protect you enough. That's all you can do in an emergency. It's the best you can do to help yourself if you're caught. Because you've got to remember, this is a firestorm. But this is what makes Punu Kurunpa very special. We've got the batholith being exposed, initially exposed on the slopes, and the Merimbula group being toppled down. I'm not boring you, am I? I'm full of this shit.
You like your rocks.
We're at the base of the start of the cliff line to Punu Kurunpa. And if you look down here, the fire was so hot, it's just disintegrated the rock here, which we have a combination of granodiorite, and cobblestones coming out of the conglomerate from the Marimbula group. The heat here has started to fracture that big one. It's exfoliated the edges away, just here, and started to crack it. Here's where it's broken stuff completely down.
Look at that. Look at that.
Nice crystals in there.
Look at the colour.
Quartz crystals. It's quartz crystals. We're at the just under the edge of the property's northern cliff boundary. We've come into the blue stringy bark zone, and it's been devastated by the firestorm and the wind that came through prior. We'll go up. Just over the top there is dry scrubby forest. It's anticipated the destruction up there will be fairly great. We're coming up over the lip now. This is all blue stringy bark up here. As anticipated, it's copped the full force of the fire front as it's topped the cliffs. Well, isn't that amazing? This flag has survived. Just enough shelter behind the rock here. This is looking down on top of Punu Kurunpa, otherwise known as the 90 vertical acres. Over in the wet sclerophyll section there's still a lot of green. That's the thing about wildfire. It tends to burn in mosaics. Wildlife have always got somewhere to run to if they're quick enough. And you can see by the green patches, even down here in the dry sclerophyll section, it's burnt through in a bit of a mosaic. And here we have a small leaved daisy bush in flower. In a position that was shielded by the rock from the wildfire as it came through from the west. Life returns. We're currently coming down the northern part of the cliff line. The fire has bitten into here. This is the wet side, believe it or not. A little bit of remnant Brogo Wet Vine Forest down into temperate rainforest in the bottom. There's a key species for Brogo Vine Forest is the rusty fig over there.
Oh, through the leaf fall that you're talking about.
Yep. Somewhat surprised to see the fire this far down this side into the temperate rainforest gully, but it would appear from here that it hasn't burnt up the opposite slope, so it may have put itself out on the way down here. Not quite got through the wet sclerophyll down the below us in the temperate rainforest. This is where the full extent of the harm wildfire causes in the short term comes to the fore. This tree would have been here when the likes of Captain James Cook sailed up the east coast. It's still on fire. It's in fact piped, burnt to the top and collapsed there from there. It was eucalyptus maiden eye or maiden's gum, and these old trees are common up into this temperate rainforest gully, and this one was also at its top where an eagle nest was, and they launched their young from up there straight down the gully once they fledged. We've watched it happen from the cliffs. As you can see, it was a huge tree. I wouldn't have quite classified it as a live stag, it was still a tree. But the fire has converted it, and there it lay. It'll be on fire down there potentially. Look at me, look at me. All right, we've now worked our way down into the gully in the area of the remnant temperate rainforest. We'll just go to the quadrant now and have a look. Unfortunately, the fire has spotted into this rainforest gully, so there'll be a mosaic of burn through here for sure. Alright, this is Cathedral Quadrant that we've arrived in. It's a 40 metre by 20 metre quadrant. I won't hunt the posts up today and do a full survey. I just wanted to check that it was intact, and as it so happens it is. The spot fires have jumped from the southern slope across to the northern slope, straight over the top of this Cathedral Quadrant. So it's like the hut, it's been most fortunate. The dominant upper story is sassafras in this quadrant. Spot fire has been either side of it, actually inside the quadrant. The quadrant peg is just up through there. There is still water here for the animals. What makes this quadrant special is what we have right here. These birds' nests. hanging onto the sassafras. And hanging in here so far south. There's pools of water locked in. And a lot of the native wildlife are obviously using this area at the moment. It's a little remnant for them. Their activity has had the effect of thinning it right out, because normally you can't see up either side of the gullies here. And yet we can see all the way through. Normally, see, there's another one of the pegs up there, guys.
Oh, yep. Yep.
Straight through there, and the other one was up there. That's the top.
Yeah.
The other one's straight through between those trees. So, and then you go 20 metres down and come across 40 metres. But I'll do a full survey later.
Yeah.
Probably come in with Kathy. You couldn't appreciate it because you haven't been here before, but it is so thin down. I'm looking straight through 200-300 metres. You could only get 50 metres at best. So it's being heavily used. Yeah, so the nests, the bird's nests are very important.
That way?
The thing about these wet spots, there's yabbies in there.
Oh God.
Big yabbies. I mean big yabbies. They're good. They're a good size, yeah. You can see all the ferns are still hanging in. There's about 10 different species of fern growing here. I just mentioned yabby, and here we have, if you can see it with this camera, the mud, and in under there, the water's actually moving here, but in underneath all that will be Mr. Yabby, waiting for the wet to come back.